Here we go. Episode 4. I'm Ronnie. This is Ronnie Talks. Thanks for listening to the podcast and or watching on YouTube. Follow me on Instagram at Ronnie Talks 4. You can find all the links for streaming the podcast, watching the video, or following me on social media at linktr.ee/Ronnie Talks. And when you're done listening or watching the podcast, you could leave a comment, a review. How about hitting that subscribe button? And most importantly, share it. Tell some friends. Now, this episode was recorded on Wednesday, December 9th, 2020, and it features a conversation with a 20-year filmmaker, a veteran in the game. His film, Brick Madness, recently released December 22nd, 2020. You can find it on Amazon Video. So now, Louis C. Rhymes is on the intro. You can follow him at Louis C. Rhymes on social media. So, let's do it.
If you wanna talk about it, talk about it. Watch what happened in the room when I walk around it. Watch what happened to your mood when I walk about it. See, my energy is love, boy, I'm all about it, all about it. Me, the one who did it off love. Haters gonna hate, but we ain't, cause we talking about me. But this shit is our son. Ladies, get your man time to spend, yeah, we talking about me. In the city where I'm from, it's the city of a king, it's the city of a dawn. Me, it's a thing, baby, get it in, ladies. Boy, I've been wavy, talking about me.
Welcome to the episode. I'm here with Justin McAleece, 20-year filmmaker. I am calling you a film festival veteran, a 12-time award winner, right? Here to tell us the story, the 11-year story of his film that will be released soon. I know you said end of 2020. I have some questions about that release date. Brick Madness, right there. You can see it.
Very nice. Yeah, I love it. It's perfect.
So let's start off. Justin, thanks for joining me. Let the people know where they can find you, websites, social media. I always like to get that out there first.
Yeah, sure. You can find me at Justin Makes Movies on Instagram. And if you look up Justin McAleece on Facebook, you can go to justinmacaleece.com. And then if you want to check out the movie at the end, that's going to be brickmadness.com as well. And you can find that in various other places under Brick Madness.
And the trailer is on YouTube, right?
Yeah, there's one on YouTube. There's the one with the most hits is on Vimeo for one reason or another. But it's a variety of places. If you look for Brick Madness trailer, it should pop up.
Yeah, I'd say check it out. I watched it. It's pretty good. It actually looks like it's pretty good. I'll probably check it out when it comes out. But before we get into Brick Madness, let's rewind it a little bit. Let's get some background info. I know you've been doing this for 20 years. You're in California now, right?
Yes, sir.
Are you from California, or where are you from?
Yeah, I'm from a little tiny town called North Fork, which is up in the foothills on the way toward Yosemite. So sort of midway in between Yosemite and Fresno in Central California.
Okay, and how old are you that you've been doing it for 20 years?
I'm 41 currently. So yeah, right out of college, that was my major in college was broadcast production. And that's sort of the closest thing they had to film school at Fresno State. I was a mechanical engineer student for like 2 years, and I switched out and moved to filmmaking, and that's way more fun. So here we are.
So was there where did the interest come from? Was there always an interest when you were younger, and then you kind of did what we all do, went to college, kind of thought you did what you found something you wanted to do, and it wasn't? But where was that original interest in filmmaking or movies or whatever?
Yeah, I definitely wasn't like making movies at 12 years old or anything like that. We didn't really have access to the gear, that sort of thing. But, like that stuff was so much harder to come by then for sure. And like, we weren't rich. We were pretty much a poor family in one way or another. And like, so we would occasionally get to use a camera that my mom would bring home from school because she was a teacher. So like
camcorder?
Yeah, literally, yeah, big camcorder.
The over the shoulder home video.
Sure, yeah. And they're like, figure it out. And I was like, I don't know how any of this stuff works. So occasionally that would happen, and we would get some, family video type stuff. But but yeah, it wasn't making 8mm, 16mm like a bunch of famous directors used to or whatever. But eventually when I got into, high school, we started doing some stuff, got into college. It seemed really fun to me.
Were
And
you
then
always like a Hollywood fan, like a, you know what I mean, like a movie person, or was this just something that just developed?
I think, I mean, I think I loved movies as much as anyone, and I had some
Right.
things I really liked for sure. I always liked animation, honestly. Like if I'm going to be watching TV or if I'm going to be watching some movies, but mainly TV, it's animation all the way, pretty much for me. Which is fun because I can't draw and I don't really do animation much,
Right.
but I just think that as an art form is so much more open, especially when The Simpsons came out, a long time ago. That's like we sort of forget just how groundbreaking that was. That an animated full time,
And it
show
was a
on.
spin-off.
Yeah, to an extent. Yeah, I mean, it was a part of a show that was part of a show that was on the Tracy
Right.
Ullman show.
Yeah. That was
Yeah,
just part of a skit. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, totally. And yeah, so I think looking back and just seeing how they could create worlds and how they could get away with anything and how they could have a
Yeah.
lot denser comedy. They could fit more jokes into a minute than you're ever able to do on a sitcom. And so that stuff always appealed to me. I'm always trying to like pack more into less time. But anyway, when I moved on into college and all that, I just saw some other movies that came out and they seemed easy. They seemed simple to do. And I'm like, I could do that, or at least me and my buddies could do that. I was hanging out with a bunch of people that I thought were really funny and entertaining. And I was like, let's just put this on camera and see what happens. So a lot of the early stuff was definitely in that vein.
Yeah, it's funny that you said you looked at it and said I could do this, and like me and
Sure.
my friends can do this. Over the past couple of years, somebody I know was actually starting to get more involved with filming his own stuff, and he came up with this whole series. It's like a sci-fi, it's kind of like a reflection on reality, like a Tales from the Crypt, Twilight Zone, Black Mirror type,
Okay.
type deal like that. We actually filmed something from there. I actually was in it. It is true for anybody listening that's ever even thought about doing it. You can do it. It's not that difficult. It's not going to be the greatest thing in the world. It's going to be an amateur film is what it's going to
Sure.
be. But
Yeah, but you got to start somewhere. Yeah. Yeah. And
absolutely,
you have all that stuff at your fingertips these days, far more than
and it's
any other
fun.
generation ever. Yeah. I mean, it's as easy as writing a story with a pen and paper. I mean, that's literally how sort of simple it is to at least get something out. I mean, you could pick up your phone right now and then just
Mhm.
hit send and you've got a movie. You don't even need to have cuts in it or anything if you do it the right
Right.
way. So yeah, it's really remarkable where we're at in terms of that. But at the heart of that, storytelling. You got to be good at storytelling. You got to figure out how to be efficient, how to be effective, how to be clear, how to be decisive, when and how to give out information. That's what directing is. That's what writing is. That's what acting is. That's all that stuff.
So I want to get into that in a little bit, but I want to
Yeah,
go
sure.
back to your story.
Okay.
So Fresno State changed your major, and then where do we go from there?
Changed my major. We're making a bunch of skits and sketches and stuff with my friends, and I was writing a screenplay for a while and other screenplays as well, and made one of those like coming out of college. And that was you have ideas in your head about how you want things to go and what you don't like about other movies, and hopefully that's what like sort of gets you started in that. And one thing that for me, which I still hold to this day, and I executed it better on Brick Madness than I did on this other movie. It had a sort of a arbitrary name of sometimes people wear black shirts, but so that was the first main like feature I did, and similar to Brick Madness, like I wrote the entirety of that. I co-wrote Brick Madness, but produced and directed and edited and shot and co-starred and all that stuff. So like everything you could do on a movie, basically I did on that. Way smaller, a small movie, but full feature film. And I wanted to not have plot get in the way, which is a funny, like I just didn't want a bunch of miscellaneous story crap that
Right.
like you sort of see coming. It's predictable. Most comedies are like that. It's like,
Right.
oh, now this is going to happen. Now they're going to break up. If it's a romantic comedy,
Mhm.
it's going to look promising. Then it's not going to work out. Then he's going to do something really dumb. And then she's going to say never again. And then
Right.
it's just, that um, you know that game plan. And so it gets really trite and boring. And not only that, but it's a comedy. And halfway through the movie, or at least the last third, nothing funny happens. And I'm
Yep.
like, I'm out, dude. I don't care about this
Yeah.
thing. Just
I'm the same
show me the
way.
first half of the movie. That was funny. Get rid of the
Yeah.
second half. And so
Yeah.
that always bothered the hell out of me. And so that was like my goal, was to make a movie without much plot that just had a bunch of jokes and people being smartasses. And I did that. Other people were like, where's the plot? And I'm like, I hate plot. And they're like, you need it. And I'm like, well,
That's right. That's kind of how it goes.
yeah. And it is really interesting. I mean, it's one of those things you learn. It's like people need to, what do you want to say? You need to fit within the rules of what they expect. You don't really actually get to break that wholesale. You get to like bring them into your world and then tease them a little bit and move it outside of what they're used to and what they're comfortable with to slightly different versions of that. But you don't actually get to break any rules wholesale. And once you look at other movies too, you realize like, wow, The Matrix is so much different than every other, whatever your example happens to be. Pick a movie that seems trend setting at the time. And you're like, wait a second, that's the same movie that's always been made. It just has different colors in it. And he's doing it instead of that dude. Yeah. So, that's what you learn while you're making art, I think, in movies. It's like, you got to give people more of the same, but different.
Right. That's so funny you just said. That's exactly what I was just going to say. It's like they're all the same, but different. They're different characters, different situations, different scenarios, different actions, different whatever. Yeah. But ultimately, it kind of tells the same story. Even if you're talking about a movie that has eight different movies to it, well, from 1 to 8, they tell the same movie that maybe one movie tells in an hour and a half.
Sure.
Ultimately, it's the good guy, bad guy,
hero's journey. Yeah, a lot of that same old stuff, which is good. And I'm not even salty about that. That's not the issue. It's just like I was then, and I was like, no, this is wrong. I'll fix it. And then I'm like, hubris of youth. That didn't work out. But that's fine. You learn your lessons and you move on and you make something that still maybe holds true to some of what your core values were, what you were attempting to do, but way better. So, I mean, that's what we think we got with Break Madness.
So I referenced film festivals when we introed. I mean, you've been to a lot of them. The one that I was just talking about that I did with a friend, with a few friends, we actually tried to enter that into the Toronto Film Festival, and
that's tough. Yeah.
So check this out. This is the first time we ever did anything like this. We never filmed anything before, and I mean, 1 or 2 of the people in the group did, but it was nothing. It was like a 5-minute video.
Sure.
This was about a half hour, and we entered it in, and there's like 4 stages to go through, right? Like, correct? There's like there's like the qualifying where like everybody submits and then they break it down like one way, and then it's like and then the 4th step is like you're into the film festival. Well, we had made it to the 3rd step.
Oh wow, that's pretty good.
Yeah, and I forgot what the quality. This was like 2 years ago. I don't remember like what the email said exactly what it was for each qualification in each thing, but we had made it to the 3rd one. So that's what I wanted to talk to you about. Film festivals. How did you start submitting? Like, how did that come about? Because I know, especially, I mean, even kind of 20 years ago, maybe not so much as now. But the conversation I had with a friend was, forget the film festivals. It's 2020. In my opinion, film festivals are for if you want to get it in front of quote unquote the right people. And if you want to put it on YouTube, you're looking to get it in front of a lot of people.
Okay. Yeah, I feel that.
Well, you tell me. That's kind of a question. Like,
yeah, no, I understand.
That's what I said. What do you think about that?
Well, things change
for you.
Yeah. Things change drastically over time. So, back when I was putting out black shirts, like film festivals were clearly there, but the way you got into them was a lot different, and the amount that existed was a lot less, certainly. And a lot of film festivals over time too, it started as a way for all these independent, no-name people to get in and get their things shown that wouldn't be shown anywhere else. And then eventually it became to what we have now, which is like you have these sort of upper, middle, and lower tier ones. And the upper tier ones are just for actual Hollywood royalty to go pretend like they're indie. Like, and the Sundance has all these other reasons to
Yeah,
put
it
things
never
in
made
that.
sense to me.
Yeah, and
It
I
never
wouldn't even
made
say it's
sense to me.
politics, but it's not, it's just Oscars Junior with an edge theoretically.
Right, right.
Yeah. And the other thing too that I realized over time too is like you would go, dated wise, I'd go to Blockbuster and I would go see the movies that had the Sundance laurel on them and like wanted official selection or one or whatever it was. And then you'd watch those movies and you're like, that movie sucked. That was so boring or weird or trite, or it just I was like,
Yeah.
I'm not into it. And they were super hit or miss.
But
And then what's that?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to control, but I was going to say, but wasn't that kind of more what the film festivals were back then? Like they were so much more amateur and so much more like almost like artsy, I guess. Like
Yeah,
film artsy, like
sure.
really amateur, like like
Yeah.
I don't know what the exact word would be.
I don't know that amateur is the right word, but artsy is a better word, I think, for what the stuff that
Yeah.
I witnessed at least. And I think the idea of weird for the sake of weird, or avant-garde for the sake of just being different,
Right.
or breaking rules because fuck the rules. Like to me, a lot of it that's what it felt like.
Like
And
forced.
yeah, forced, like trying too hard, right?
Right, right.
We all
right,
know that
exactly.
person. When we see that person, we're like,
Everybody knows.
trying too hard.
Yeah,
Like,
you can't hide that.
yeah, you're being you're pretending like you're being yourself, whether you're making the movie or not. And we're like, yeah, but that's all a show. Like, clearly it's a show. Anyway, a lot of it was what it felt like back then to me from the outside. But there's still a place for that, and there's still absolutely a place for people to develop what they want to put out to the world. And so that's a thing that in film festivals you get a chance. What we don't get a chance to do in the same sort of way that we think that we used to 20 years ago is like, once I make my movie, then if it's good enough, it'll get into Sundance. And I'm not shitting on Sundance specifically. This is like any of these top tier ones, South by, or maybe Toronto, or maybe Cannes, or maybe Berlin, or whatever it happens to be, right? If it's good enough, then I'm going to get into one of these, and then Miramax, quote unquote, like back in the day, whatever it is, Netflix is going to come and be like, oh, that's the movie. We're going to put that up in pictures. It's going to be great. $1 million. Here you go. Signing bonus. Like that shit doesn't happen that way. That's all fictitious at this point. Those are fairy tales.
Right.
Which is fine. That's just the way that it's developed over time. And maybe those were all like one-offs to begin with.
But don't you think a lot of people go into the business nowadays because they think that that's a reality? And
sure.
Meanwhile, that's kind of like I don't think anybody should be comparing themselves, or their expectations should be to be like the next, like Seth Rogen, and like I don't know, Jim Carrey, or like Brad Pitt, or like anybody, or like even a filmmaker. Like I said Seth Rogen because he makes his own films also.
Sure. Yeah.
But like, I don't think anybody their expectation should not be to be that person.
No. And it's, yeah, you have to be reasonable. There's always these really weird things at play, because like I said, I've been a working filmmaker for 20 years now, and I have been making a decent living at it, and I've got to travel to, dozens of countries and do all sorts of cool stuff and meet famous people and all this. I'm not saying that to brag at all. I'm saying that to say, like, when people are like, oh, cool, what did you make? What have I seen? I'm like, well, there was this one thing like 6 years ago that, and like my answer is really weak in a lot of ways. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, like most things, most people are producing things that you never may see, but it's still part of the whole world of cinema. Right. And it's important for other reasons. It's like you have to have things that rise to the top. And if your thing's not that thing, you still try to learn and get better. And hopefully you inspire someone else.
Right. Well,
someone learns from you along the way. I mean, it's all part of the process. Yeah.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. I think one of the biggest things in that industry is forget success. And I don't mean success of like personal success. I mean like the film success, or forget like most of the stuff isn't going to blow up. But I think the experiences is how you grow in that industry.
Yeah. And you don't know what you don't know till you realize you don't know it in filmmaking, for sure. Like more than most things. I mean, a lot of things there's a manual, say you're a mechanic or something. They're like, well,
Right.
here's the manual for how you work on a, 2006 Saturn. And here's all that stuff. And it's a little weird because of this thing, but here's how you do it. And then you learn from some people. I don't know. I've never been a mechanic. Maybe it's different, but it's like, at least it's been written down by someone because someone had to put it together in the first place. You don't really get that in filmmaking, not in the same sort of way. And you're making 1,000 decisions a day. And those decisions are vague and amorphous and super specific. And why are you making them? And there's like all these various disciplines and a million other things that go into making a movie that almost have nothing to do with you sometimes. So it's a tough thing. It's like being a coach on a football team or something. And they're like, here, be a coach. Like, I don't know any of these players and I only got to pick 2 of them and I don't actually have enough money for a stadium. And I'm not sure who we're going to play tomorrow because who knows, man? Because I'm trying to do this on the fly and then we'll edit it out later. And you're like, what? None of that makes sense. It's a terrible idea.
We'll figure it out when we need to figure it out.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's the Wild West a lot of times, and that's a good thing. That's part of what makes it fun.
How did you originally get started with entering yourself into festivals?
I think I did some this was like predating Film Freeway, and there were some other ways. I forget exactly the name of the website or whatever, but in like 2006 or 4 or something like that, I tried to put in to a couple, probably didn't. I don't think I got into any with that movie. And then quit after time. And I think people are I was very naive, and a lot of people I talked to are very naive, and they put into the top tier ones. And also they had this idea that like, well, I have to premiere at South by, because if I go for these other ones, then they won't let me into South by. And you're like, now me talking to someone else in the past, I'm like, dude, just enter it into everything. Get out of here. You're not going to get into South by, and it's not because your thing sucks. Maybe it's the best thing I've ever seen. It doesn't really matter. There's all these sorts of other, everything else at play there. Don't even sweat it, man. Just enter into some stuff, get some laurels, get some experience. Hopefully you meet some people. Be good about networking. Don't spend money on a bunch of stuff you won't get into. Don't waste your cash. It's like, just you put down your ego for just a second and like just be part of the world of that stuff, the game, and get into it and get out and don't lose all your money and actually have something to show for it. That's what I would say. Yeah.
Yeah. I think kind of like it isn't really quality over quantity in this situation. I'd say like quantity is a good thing in this situation. Like the more you can do, like you said, networking, the more you can make, the more you can be a part of, the more you can whatever. Just be involved. I think that's like the best way to go about it.
Yeah. And, it's sort of the equivalent of me sitting here and being like, well, I don't want to talk to Ronnie. I'm going to wait until Joe Rogan puts me on. I'm going to be on his show first. And you're like, well, that doesn't even make sense. And you're like, but that's how the filmmaking world is set up for festivals. And you're like, well, then that's dumb, because that is not a reasonable way to approach that at all. Like, meet as many people as you can, work your way up, see what happens, and just be omnipresent. Yeah.
So you're the first person ever to compare me to Joe Rogan. So I'll pick that.
You got it, man. The king of podcast. And he's a good person to compare anyone to, because all he did was just be like, well, I'm just going to do this every day for 10 years and see what happens.
And he was one of the first to really blow up on it. So his timing was perfect too.
Yeah.
His timing was perfect.
Yeah.
So you've had a lot of different roles, and I don't mean like acting roles. I mean a lot of different roles on set in movies. Sure. You've been the director, the producer, the editor. You've been an actor. You've done it all. Let's just say.
Yes.
So was that all only on your own movies?
Yeah, I've been a director on other people's projects. Certainly when I'm talking about like feature films and stuff, I've only done a few dozen of those in one way or another or whatever. But I've directed like hundreds of commercials and
humble brag right there.
Well,
we got a few dozen feature films. No big deal.
It's hard. Why I say it like that is because if you look on IMDb, I was actually looking on it the other day because I wanted to check on something. And there's this movie. It's an asylum movie called Zombies that I helped out on. It's a zoo for zombies. Do you get it? It's a zoo for zombies.
Is it on?
It was on Sci-Fi. It was on Sci-Fi. It came out like a month after we worked on it.
Sci-Fi. You're right.
Yeah.
It was on Sci-Fi. I thought it was on Hulu for some reason, but yeah, I don't think I
Could have been,
watched
too.
it. But I got to check it out now. Now that
it's
you've
not
been
great.
a guest on the show, and I know you've been a part of the movie.
I had so little to do with it. No, that's the point I'm trying to get to. I had almost nothing to do with it. I was there for 2 days out of 16 or whatever they shot it in. And I was just like, I was filling in for my brother actually in the situation. And so it was like, that was not my movie. Not that I'm not that I'm disavowing it for any reason. It's like, whatever. But it was, there are a number of projects on IMDb just to let people know that it says I was the blankety blank of, and I was like, yeah, I was there for a day. And you guys made the movie around me and in spite of me. But
don't discredit yourself. Who cares?
Yeah. Well, and that's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's what I'm saying to anyone else out there. It's like, just work on stuff when you get a chance and be involved and learn from others, and like, don't be insulated in your own world, and like, just keep putting yourself out there because I just think it's important. Yeah. And you never know when someone will call you up 5 years later. That stuff totally happens.
True.
Yeah. And be like, hey, I got a text the other day and it was like, hey, can you be here? Can you AC tomorrow? And I was like, I had to look at the number and I was like, I don't remember who that dude is. Yeah. And then I had to like look up his name in my email and be like, oh, sort of remember who that dude is.
Yeah, right.
But he was talking to me like it was yesterday.
One time.
Yeah, that's true. But he had money for me. So
yeah, that's awesome that somebody reached out after like a long time, no matter what it's for. Like you said, welcome all work, all networking, all collaborations, do it all.
Yeah,
so now
keep it going.
Let's get into the main reason that we brought you here. We promote Brick Madness, 11 years in the making.
Yeah.
So it's for anyone that didn't pause this to go watch the trailer and then come back.
Yeah.
Should
we give him time? Should we just hang out? Should we just give him time?
Yeah, let's just wait. If you want, you can go right now. We can do like 2 seconds.
No, that's stupid. Let's not. All right. Yeah. It's a movie about a national Lego competition.
Lego building. So that's a real thing?
Sort of. They have Lego conventions and they do like a small part of those, because I went to a number of them. I went to like 6 or 8 of them around the country, the biggest ones. And a small part of what they do can be competition. Most of it is not that way.
Like a Comic-Con environment.
Yeah, it's more like that. And they do competition, but it's more like best in show of the ones that were just displayed there. No one's building any. It doesn't happen all that often that they're building there in person, unless it's just like a speed round. But it's not like a big tournament. You don't have multiple rounds in the way that we do. It's not that sort of thing. It's not March Madness.
So Brick Madness is on. I'm giving you a scenario. Brick Madness is on TV. I see it on the guide. I scroll down to it and I read the info. What does it say?
Well, the log line's talking about, guy is trying to get back. Yeah, a guy is trying to outwit the.
Did I put you on the spot?
Yeah, no, I know. I don't remember the log line very well. Anyway, it's saying that there is a competition. I'm going to give you the nuts and bolts. There's a competition. It's got a bunch of weird people that are into bricks and they're super into it. And it's a life and death struggle for them because this one guy's an arrogant prick. And then this other guy get kicked out for cheating, supposedly. And
allegedly.
And the new dude is in, allegedly. And the new dude is in. And he has to win to clear the name of a fallen hero. So, I mean, that's basically what it is.
Yeah. And for anybody that likes like these quirky, kind of like nerdy, goofy comedy styles, and I'd say it kind of reminded me of like kind of like those college style movies, like almost like the American Pie, like the later ones.
Could be.
With like the younger, like just I don't know. I just got that vibe like that. It's almost like it's like a fun, quirky environment. Like
it's fun. It's lighthearted. I've been told it's a stoner comedy. I don't smoke, but I've been told it could definitely appeal to that. Yeah. It
is. It's a very like stoner comedy, dry humor, quick response.
Very dry. Yes. Very smart asses, very sarcastic, that sort of thing. I mean, there's enough there's some broad humor. Broad humor would be, you know, things that appeal to the most amount of people, someone falling on their face. There's a little bit of that, but it's not, I don't really subscribe to most of what Hollywood thinks is funny, because it's not particularly funny to me. And so it's not a whole lot of that. I think we try to have a lot of jokes that are really sort of like, you might not get them the first or second time, or they're small little things. I don't like people selling jokes. I like people like, here you go. It's here. You want it? Take it if you want it. I think it's funny. That's what we do.
I'm the same way. I like to watch a movie 3-4 times and pick up something I missed every time.
Yeah.
You know, I don't need things like, I don't like when the movie insults my intelligence. Like you just said, like, don't just put things in front of my face. I'll catch it. You know, I'm paying attention.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's. I mean, I think Hollywood in general just has these moments, not in dramas usually, and sometimes in comedies, a decent amount of times in comedies, definitely in like action movies. Michael Bay, I'm looking at you, where they fundamentally think that their audience is stupid, and they have no respect for them whatsoever, and that's I hate that stuff, and so I want to try to, you know, I think what a lot of it's sort of like the film student-itis is like, you don't make things clear enough. A lot of times that's what you do when you're starting out. It's like, you think it's abundantly clear to the audience. It's not clear at all. So I'm always trying to be careful of that, make it, you know, show everyone exactly the information I want them to know in a super clear way, and then let them decide how they feel about it, or let them decide if they think it's funny, or let them come to their own conclusions about what they care or not about that thing. That's all you can do. You don't tell them to care. You don't tell them it's funny. You don't, you know, insert laughter here. Like, that's the bullshit that I hate. And that's what a lot of, I think, you know, popular movies do. And that's what's frustrating. Yeah.
But I think, and I'll insult everyone for a second, then we can
do it.
I was gonna say, I think most people need their handheld these days.
Sure.
But we don't need to get into that.
No, but I mean, it's a conditioning factor. You know, the more people are prone to be as lazy as is possible, and that's not even like the word lazy is loaded, and it doesn't have to be. It's conservation of energy. We're talking about straight up dependent. No, I'm saying it's conservation of energy from historically speaking, like evolutionary wise, right? Like, and it's why, not to go off on a tangent, but it's why we eat butter and salt and sugar and these other things, is like, honestly, like, that's the most amount of calories you can get in the least amount of space. And so for hundreds of thousands of years, or however you want to go back on hominids, 2 million years, it's like, we were just trying to get calories, right? And so you're trying to get calories, and then you're trying to rest. And then when you're not resting, you have to go hunt food. And then the easiest possible food you can go kill, and then go eat in the fastest way. Like, that's what you want. And so people, I mean, biologically speaking, are prone to
it's too easy.
Yeah, no, for sure, for food. So that's a different thing. So now for the first time in mankind, we have an overabundance of calories at our fingertips all the time, right? That didn't happen for 99.9% of our existence. But we're also trying to constantly conserve our energy of thinking, biologically speaking. And that's why we like dumb stuff.
Right.
Bad music, bad movies, bad everything, is because it's easier to intake. And like, I'm not even mad at people, because that makes sense, biologically speaking.
I'm mad at
you. No. You be mad. I'll be all right with it. I am mad. I just say that, and just so I don't seem like such a dick.
Don't ever let him see you sweat. So I said earlier I was going to have questions about the release date. So here it is. Do we have one?
Oh yeah. No, it's already out on Blu-ray and DVD at this point. So it's been out since I'm trying to remember, the 15th of November.
Oh, all right.
We've been selling Blu-ray and DVD as pre-sales.
Okay.
We haven't shipped anything yet.
Okay.
I'm getting the date wrong on that. This is 3 weeks ago or so. Anyway, that's been available, and we've been selling, and that's been great. Those are going to ship a little after the 15th of December. So like in a week here or so, those are going to ship. And then on the 22nd, 2/2 of December, we are going on Amazon, and that's going to be available in the other ways. So that's going to be great. Yeah.
All right. So there you go. So as of just about December 15th, the DVDs and Blu-rays go out. Yeah. December 22nd, you can get it on Amazon.
Yeah.
So now it was shot mockumentary style. So for anybody that doesn't know what that is, you'll kind of figure it out with my next question. Were you a fan of The Office?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, 100%.
Is that where that kind of not came from, but kind of in the back of your mind?
No, we sort of predated that. I mean, I
Oh,
was
okay.
making mockumentaries far, far before that. We were, I mean, back in college, I was making some of that stuff. No, it's more of Christopher Guest sort of thing. So if you've ever seen A Mighty Wind or Best in Show or even Spinal Tap, Waiting for Guffman, any of those movies.
I'm the worst.
No.
I've seen a lot of movies. I haven't, and
Yeah.
those are some famous movies, and I haven't seen any of them.
You should take a look at Spinal Tap just
Yeah.
because it's
You're
there are
probably
some
not the only person to ever tell me that.
there's some fantastic jokes in there. It might feel slow by today's standards at times, but I've watched it a few times. I've watched it a number of times. And the more, it's like anything, you get into it more and it gets more entertaining every time. It's definitely one of those movies for me. But yeah, it's more, that's where it's coming from. Why we wanted to do a mockumentary, and also for like, what do you want to say? Economic reasons. It's like it was easier to have the crew in the shot because we only had one crew. It was easier to like not have it quite so pretty. I mean, because you're talking to, like, for instance, today, right? I was a director of photography on a local commercial we're doing, and we spent 4 hours shooting 13 seconds worth of footage or whatever it is. So it's like I can't do that in real life on a movie like this that I'm self-funding. I can't shoot a minute a day and expect to ever get done with our movie. And so it just takes a long time to do that stuff and do it effectively and make it look exactly how you want it to look. And this is not really that movie. No one's going to look at it and be like, oh my God, it was so beautiful. It was so, breathtaking. The visuals on this movie, because it's not what it's about. I mean, we're trying to make a funny thing in a world that exists and trying to make it feel as real as possible.
It did. I'll tell you what. That's why the first thing I asked you was, are there really those competitions? Because I didn't know, and that made me think that that was something real that you were playing off of. And I'll be completely honest. The first time I watched the trailer, in the first few seconds, I didn't know if it was a documentary or not. For a second, it gets you. I really recommend it for anybody that didn't see it. I really did enjoy it. I'm not just talking about.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I spoke to these guys up in Canada a couple weeks ago, and one of the dudes was like, yeah, I was watching it. And then, because he was watching the feature, the full movie, and he was like, and then I called up the other host and I said, this is a real movie. He was about half an hour into it. He's like, this is a real documentary, right? These are real people. And he's like, no, that's not true. It's fake. And he's like, don't fuck with me right now. This is a real thing. These are actual real people. This is just a documentary. He's like, no, it's made up. He's like, dude, my fucking ears are bleeding. This isn't, I don't know what's real anymore. Like that sort of thing. I felt really good about that.
Yeah, no. It seems like it was really well done. It really does. I want to see it once it comes out on Amazon. I'm waiting.
Beautiful.
For it to come out on Amazon, and
Love
I'll
it.
check it out.
Yeah. And then write me something to the effect of like, you watched Break Madness first, then you went back and watched Spinal Tap, and you're a real big fan of Break Madness.
Right. There you go. My top 2 movies ever. That's what they'll be.
The mockumentaries.
Everyone else involved in Break Madness, the actors and all that. Like you said, the movie had no funding. Were these friends of yours? Are these other filmmakers? Are these other actors? Are these people just looking to get something on paper, or how did you get like the whole crew together?
Yeah, I would say all the above. I mean, we work as filmmakers all the time. And so I have a lot of filmmaker friends, not only that helped shoot it, but helped produce it and put it together. The producer was my ex-wife. So we worked on that. And then, like a couple of years ago, I got divorced and now I'm remarried. And so that was, she was like working on setting up the places and the people and all that sort of stuff, helped co-write it. And, then we had a number of other people locally here in Fresno who were awesome to be able to give us time and give us camera and gear and lights and stuff like that and really work tirelessly on that. People got paid. Not everyone got paid. All the main crew members got paid, but they were doing it for cheap. And, I'm super grateful for that. Yeah. And that's sort of, you do enough favors for someone over time and hopefully they're willing to return the favor. And they absolutely came through in spades in that. And then we hired actors out of LA we did casting down in LA and found some ones that we really needed for certain roles. And for the rest of the roles, we hired people that we already knew. And a lot of the roles were written for specific people that were my friends anyway. So that was the perfect solution to any of those situations. And some of those roles they wrote themselves more or less within writing, because we had a lot of co-writers on the movie, and we did it sort of like a TV show. You mentioned The Office. It's like we got together like they would get together a writer's room, and 8 or 10 of us pitched ideas and put down jokes. And
in comparison, a lot of the actors from The Office were the writers. Originally, they were writers, and then they just fit into the roles.
Yeah, writers, or when you read about it and you see who Phyllis, especially, she was a casting agent or something like that.
I believe she was a casting agent. They were just doing a table reading.
Yeah,
and they had her read for the part, and they just looked at her and they said, "You're it.
You're it, right?" And she was reading for it. She wasn't even acting in it. She was just doing it. Yeah. So there's a number of those things in there, and I think that's a good example of how that can work, because you know, Mose is one of the executive producers. Like, there are a lot of people in there that are super important to it that on the show look silly and like they're sort of dumb or whatever.
Ryan is one of the main writers.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah. So that's I would say it's sort of similar how we did it within our thing,
right? BJ Penn. Yeah.
No, BJ Penn's the BJ. What's his name? BJ Penn's the UFC guy. BJ Novak. BJ Novak. Yeah. I think BJ Penn could take BJ Novak. Yeah, so that's it's cool how that works, and I think it's great. I think when you have a lot of people around that are like want to make a good thing and buy into the process and the idea and are just, you know, really into it, it was the most fun set ever. And like, I just adore all the people on it, and I loved being a part of it. It was incredibly stressful at times and super hard to figure out, but like, it was so much fun. Yeah.
Good segue. Incredibly stressful, super hard to figure out, and took 11 years. Tell me about it. Why, how, what's
most of that's, it's my fault. I mean, most of that's my fault when it comes down to it. It's like, it's easy to get, like 6 months can go by here and there because it is just a bitch to fix something and to like figure out how to shoot this thing now that this other thing doesn't exist, or to want to talk to Lego because maybe they're going to do a thing and they're going to help you and, you know, buy a bunch of Lego and you'll do it that way, or you're not going to be able to shoot it at this convention and you wanted to, or it's not quite done writing yet, but you can't do anything else until it is, or whatever, or you're switching computer programs. I mean, because we were, you know, I was on a Mac on Final Cut Pro, and then we went over to onto Premiere, and then we went to Windows, and then to Windows on Premiere, and then and then you try to get into the coloring program. There's just all these things that happen in editing wise specifically that are just like heinous. Like that can just stop you in your tracks. So while I'm doing that, of like dealing with the stuff that sometimes I was good at, sometimes I sucked at, you're also dealing with the fact that like, oh, you're doing video production 70 hours a week all the time, every week, aside from that. And so you're trying to fit in both at the same time. You're trying to run a company, and it's just difficult. And so it's like, sometimes I was great at it and sometimes I wasn't. And, you know, everyone else was around me being really good, really good cheerleaders and asking me once a month, like, hey, when's the movie coming out? Hey, when's the movie coming out? And like really badgering me in sort of a good sort of way. Not just being annoying because they were like,
they were just staying on top of you and making sure you're so focused. And
it's one thing if an extra does that was on set one day and you're like, dude, you fuck off, you didn't put in the time. But it's a totally different thing when someone who usually gets a bunch of money on a big set and they showed up and they were like, dude, I want to see it come out. So that's been great. And during distribution process and trying to figure out who to get it to and all that, it's like, you always have people being like, oh, you can go get $1 million up front for this, no problem. And then you have other people that are like, no, I'm not, I won't offer you $1. Why would I? You know, and you hear those sorts of stories all the time in Hollywood. And it's just a weird thing to have a movie you're trying to sell. Yeah. It's crazy. Cause you end up going to the, you turn down a bunch of girls. Well, usually that's not the thing, but you know, if you say no to the girls because you thought you had a better chance at a prettier girl in high school going to the prom or whatever it happens to
Right.
be. And then the night before the prom, you're like, oh shit, I don't have a date. I'll take anyone. Where's my cousin at? Let's go. And so like that's sort of how making a movie, distributing a movie is. It's, you're trying to woo people and they have all the power. You don't have any of the power in a lot of ways, most of the time.
Right. It's entering a negotiation with no leverage.
Yeah, that's a lot of what it is. And you're like, but I made this movie. And they're like, yeah, you're eager to sell. You really want to get anything you can from this. I understand. You have no leverage whatsoever. Yeah.
Right. So when was it actually filmed, and how long did the filming of it take?
It came in multiple waves. We did sort of introductory interviews. So we did a bunch of interviews with people that were and were not related to Lego in any way, or not to the Lego group, but to, builders, actual AFOL, adult fans of Lego. Some of them were just my friends, and were like, I was sort of like working through the process of like what it was going to be. So that stuff was happening way back in like 2010 or so. And then most of the production we did in 2011 and 12, maybe 13, I forget. And we probably did, I don't know, I sort of, these numbers are sort of fuzzy to me. We might have shot for like 12 full days of actual production stuff. And then we did 20 or 30 other days of like a couple hours or an hour, this little thing here and there, so it was over a long time and completely distended. And I literally shot a few shots for it like 2 months ago. I was still shooting stuff then, little pieces that are in the final thing that are like important to the storytelling.
Sure.
So that's what happens as you go along sometimes.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. It's so cool, like, to hear like the whole journey of it, because I mean, the fact that you even just threw it and like you just filmed something recently, it's just so cool that it just shows you like it's not, to quote Yogi Berra, it's not over till it's over.
It's over till it's over. Yeah, right. Yeah. It's a difficult thing making a film, and it's a difficult thing. And it hasn't even really been the process of like not being able to let go. Like a lot of people take forever because they're trying to make it perfect. I'm like, it was not perfect a long time ago. It's not going to be perfect. That's not what we're aiming for. Yeah, it wasn't done, or I was waiting for the next step to be able to do distribution in the way I thought I could. And those things morph over time. And we have Little Sister Entertainment doing the production now, distribution now, and that's great. And I'm like super psyched at how it's going. So all that is awesome. It's just a matter of fitting in I don't want to downplay this at all. Like the industry itself has just changed so much. Every year it's significantly different than it was the year before. I mean, it's crazy how often it just flips on its head. Because like Netflix and Hulu and all those weren't even a thing 5 years ago, really.
Well, look at now. Look at the past 9 months. I mean, movie theaters are.
Sure.
I don't know. Are they even a thing?
Dude, I don't know. Yeah.
You're in California. I'm in New York. I know that for you and me, movie theaters are gone.
Nothing. We haven't been able to do any of it.
Country, but
yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's been weird for sure.
So
and
the whole
that's
industry, I think, is changing again.
Yeah, and not necessarily in a good way, because I don't want to not be able to go to theaters. That would suck.
And I think from a business aspect and kind of like a filmmaker point of view, I think it's also not changing in a good way. And I didn't expect to get into this, but we could talk about it for a minute. I think it's also changing in a bad way, because I feel like the circle's getting smaller. Like the exclusivity club is just getting smaller and smaller, and like the chances for filmmakers like yourself and independent filmmakers, and now with like all these going basically everything to streaming, no theaters, film festivals are going to get hit from the same thing. Without having theaters, you can't really have the film festivals. Everything's going to be online, and I think YouTube is whatever their reasons are, they are taking big steps into censorship these days. I think that circle, the filmmaking circle, the move, there's only it's like trying to fit a lot into a small space, basically, is kind of what I'm trying to say.
Well, there's more media than there's ever been. There's more stuff fighting for our attention all the time than has ever existed. Like You know,
But I think
there's more shit that was made in the last 6 months than the whole rest of humanity ever, like in one way or another, right?
But I'm saying, like, I think as far as like the top of the mountain, like
Yeah, for sure.
Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, cable TV,
Yeah,
HBO Go, and all these things that are basically only streaming now, like, right? Like the main source of
it's
where
the
we're going to get our
Pareto principle. Yeah,
right.
it's
The
the
main
Pareto
source of where
principle.
we're going to
So
get everything from there is from there now. Like there's no outlet in the theaters now, So it's
yeah,
all before you were even getting like these indie films on Netflix and stuff. But I feel like with all the big, Paramount, Disney has their own streaming. It's all just the big boys are the only ones that can, they're kind of squeezing everybody
yeah,
out.
yeah, yeah, and it's controlled by things. It's controlled by forces that have nothing to do with making artistic content for filmmakers, or very little to do, because that's
funny.
actually that's the third or fourth step. And not to say that good things are getting made. That's not true at all. Good things are getting made, but they're getting made for very specific criteria.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that we have a lot more venture capital in high finance, like that's what's actually financing movies, not some guy who really wants to be a part of filmmaking history
Right.
and help someone else make a really good movie. It's not that at all. It's like, Lehman Brothers essentially getting in and being like, well, here's some money that we were able to borrow at negative percentage. So here's money.
And I expect to make 10 times back.
Yeah. And if I don't, then I'm going to be mad. So don't do anything risky at all, ever.
Exactly.
So that's scary. And I'm not, once again, there's plenty of good shit on Netflix coming out.
Sure.
I don't have the time to watch it. That's it. But it probably is a very select amount of people that are getting to make those things, like you're saying. The other thing is that stuff is controlled by algorithms of what people watch and why and how it's going to work. And so they're really smart at figuring that out, because they got a million computers popping out a million ideas and then being like, well, here's the 5 we need. And so
then you get this repetitiveness and
could be, yeah. Yeah, it's hard to fit into that world if you're not part of that world. I mean, exactly. You don't just get breakouts. And that's the weird thing. It's like when you look back through history of, we're talking about Star Wars. It's like when you read about how hard that was for him to get it off the ground, how little even when it was done, like when it was done before they actually put in the score, before John Williams was done and they only had some temp music or whatever, like the Fox executives watched it and they're like, this movie sucks. We wasted a lot of many millions of dollars. This is a travesty. And then, eventually they got it. And I don't even know how stoked they were after that. And then when the audience saw it, they're like, this is the best thing that's ever happened in the history of the world. And then everyone's like, yeah, see, I said it was a good idea. And you're like,
yeah.
So they've sort of figured out how to undo that a little bit now because of I think AI is so smart at predicting what people are going to want to watch. I mean, but Netflix is good.
That's always my thing with AI and like algorithms and that like that predictability. Is it really smart? Because at the end of the day, all it's doing is going by numbers. And I mean, we're human beings. We operate on more than just numbers. You know what I mean? More than just averages. More than just there's things people look for that are outside of the averages is basically what I'm saying. And it's like to only cater to, even if it's, let's break it down. I mean, I doubt it's not, the algorithms aren't finding things that 80% of people like. They're finding things at 52%, 51, 50. You know what I'm saying? So it's, there's a mass part of the audience that's looking for something that's coming more from like human intuition or more from just emotional or more outside the box of from what the average is for whatever reason. And you're losing all that, like in filmmaking.
Yeah, it is not, you're right. It's not making stuff for everyone. It is making stuff for enough of the people to really like.
Exactly.
So it is good.
That's a good way to put it.
It is good at, what do you want to say? We go watch the thing. How many people left Transformers 3 being like, that was a stinking pile of shit? And how many other people were like, well, yeah, obviously that was going to suck. And they're like, why did you go? And I'm like, well, I had to go see it. And I'm like, why did you have to see it? Why did you have to see it? That doesn't make any sense. And that's the thing. I mean, Netflix is not making Transformers 3 bullshit, but they are still working within the same principle of, if they tell you what you are supposed to watch, you are going to watch that thing. Netflix always starts. I don't know if you realize this. Netflix always starts its countdown of the biggest shows or TV or movies or whatever
everyone's watching right now
at number one. They always start at number one. It doesn't matter how many people are watching number one, because it's only number one within a closed system, right?
Right. It's number one. That's like
it's number one to them.
We surveyed 100 people.
Yeah.
So this is what happened.
It's Family Feud in a closed system. And so there's always a number one answer, no matter how good that thing is. And so they have enough people, obviously, especially now, pandemic time, sitting at home watching Netflix, that they're always going to get a lot of people to watch that because they said it was number one. Yeah. And so they've created a whole different thing. And that's what the cinemas were like that in a lot of ways too. They're like, what can I go see today? You know, these people that I never understand, they just show up to the movies and be like, I wonder what's playing. It's 6:52. I guess we'll watch a movie at 7. And I'm like, fuck you. Movies aren't made for you. Go to hell. The fact that you take that so cavalierly and just pretend like anything that happens to be playing is what's going to be good for you, I have no time for you.
Yeah, I could never do that. There's only certain, I personally, I like sitting at home watching a movie. I would much rather be home and watch even a blockbuster film. There's only certain movies that I feel like, all right, I need to see that in the theater. You know, like for example, this is kind of corny example, I guess, but when Aladdin came out in 3D, I was like, I can't watch that in my house. Like, I love that movie as a kid. I got to go see that in the theaters. You know, like I saw when they first started releasing the new Star Wars movies, I said, I got to go see that in the theaters. I don't want to see that for the first. But for my money, I love
the rest.
staying home. And that's my favorite way to take it all in. I like being home and just hanging out watching the movie.
Yeah, and if all you ever had was Netflix, then you would watch what they told you to watch.
True.
And you would probably say it was good because everyone else is saying it's good.
Right.
And you would just be part of that machine. And I'm not saying that machine sucks. I mean, they're producing good content. But it is okay. That's fair. Fine. I don't get enough chance to watch it. You know, I mean, it's like so I haven't seen Queen's Gambit and any of that stuff yet. That's the name of it, right? Queen's Gambit.
Yeah. They took all the good shows off, man. After Disney got their streaming, and they took Daredevil off, and
Gotcha.
Netflix ain't as great as it used to be, and they're charging. No. They're actually about to go up too.
It's crazy. More. Yeah, they're about to raise the price. Well, I own some stock, so hopefully it does fine.
Well, you're about to make a couple of cents, a couple of fractions off a penny off the extra $2 they're going to be charging.
Yeah, exactly. No, you. Yeah, it has become quite fractured in the last 6 months. Like you're saying, man. I mean, you took a thing that there was one dominant player, then 2 dominant players, now 32 dominant players, and it became it. And it's such a cyclical thing, right? Was because we had 3 networks or whatever, ABC, CBS, NBC forever, and then Fox got in, and then UPN, and then WB. Like a lot of people don't even remember that stuff. And then
I do.
You get all your cable, right? And so you have 1,000 channels, and then everyone's like, I'm not paying. Yeah, there you go. I'm not paying $75 a month for 1,000 channels, 995 of which I don't give a shit about. And so then you're like, well, we can do this thing. It's going to be one network essentially. It's just going to be VOD network, so you can watch whatever you want from this group of stuff. It's going to be great. And they're like,
and that was born out of pay-per-view.
Yeah, for sure. Sure. Yeah, that was the original thing. You're like, but you're paying $8 a pop sometimes, and then like 5, and then whatever. So then it became this thing to where you could get Netflix and you would be able to see all these things, all the movies. You just sort of assume at one point or another, like all the movies are going to be on Netflix, sort of. And then it's not like that at all now. It's the complete opposite because it's actually gone back to the other way. So instead of paying one person, one company $75, now you're paying 7 companies $50.
Right. It was the same thing as buying your cable packages and getting different channels.
Exactly.
One package or this package. They got away from that, and then you're right. And I didn't really put 2 and 2 together until you just said it. But
and now you have 7 bills.
Right. If you want if you want to watch everything you want to watch, then you better have every source.
Yeah. And it's way worse. I mean, there's a lot of good things about that stuff, but from a user perspective, like what do you want? Do
And
you want?
there's like 3 or maybe 4 things on each one that I watch. So I'm
Sure.
paying like $18 a month to watch 3 shows on one service. Like it's just dumb. And I mean, we all do it. I do it, but whatever.
We got into a really weird paradigm that just on paper, it doesn't make any sense. But like
we're
when
all
you
giant
chart that thing
contradictions.
out, yeah, they do that and then they do this and then they do that again. And like, we're just getting screwed at every turn.
Yeah. We're walking, talking contradictions. That's all we are. That's all we all are.
No doubt about that.
So before we start wrapping it up, is there anything you want to talk about? Anything I missed? Anything anything in the world you want to talk about?
Yeah, don't get me started. No, I would just say that I'm trying to focus. Yeah, I think Brick Madness is a really fun movie. I mean, that's why I made it. Tarantino talks about that. He's like, someone asked him, like, what's your favorite movie? He's like, the one I just made. That's why I made it. Like, that was the whole idea.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I would just say, like, give it a chance. Watch the trailer. You don't have to like Lego to like the movie by any means.
No, not at all.
If you are into Lego, then I think you would like it. I think for anyone who loves comedy or wants something a little bit different than what the Hollywood Machine does. I watched the movie The Other Guys the other day.
Oh, love it.
Do you? Yeah, I thought it was okay. I was like, Brick Madness is funnier than that. Fuck that movie. Way funnier, in my opinion.
But my whole thing with that movie and why I think it's so funny.
Okay.
I think the comedic timing and the delivery of maybe not like the story, the plot, like it is. It's the same as everything else. But I just think Mark Wahlberg, Will Ferrell, and just the way they delivered some of the stuff and the way they go back and forth. It's the acting, I guess, got me in that movie.
Yeah. And like, that's what's so weird. There's this thing that someone was interviewing Jerry Seinfeld back when Seinfeld was a big deal and saying, like, so you've been working with Larry David for all these years. Explain to me how are you guys able to write scripts together? And he goes, well, Larry David and I share the absolute most amount of sense of humor that 2 humans can share.
Right.
Oh, what do you mean by that? He's like, how much is that? He's like, 40%. And I was like, fuck, that kind of is weird. Because you can have your best friend in the whole world or your wife or whoever it is. And you're like, that was hilarious. And they're like, no, it's not. That's not funny at all.
Right.
So,
no, that's a great answer.
That's why you're going to make that stuff. That's why you're going to make something. And you have to make something specifically that you think is funny or you think is good or scary or dramatic or whatever it happens to be. Like, you have to make a movie for yourself for sure. And then you have to hopefully hope that it appeals to the most amount of people that it can, especially on an indie level. And so I would just say, like, give it a chance. If you're looking for something a little bit different, have some fun with it. We definitely put in the time and effort, and there are a lot of people that put in a lot of work for very little money, just to be part of something that they liked. So there's that.
Yeah, and if you're interested in it, brickmadness.com. You can also check out justinmcaleece.com. What is this Twitter? Are you on Instagram also?
Yeah, Instagram.
Justin Makes Movies.
Yeah, that's on Instagram. Yeah.
Okay, at Justin Makes Movies on Instagram.
Sure.
I recommend it too. Go on YouTube, check out the trailer. I'm definitely going to check it out when it comes out on Amazon. I enjoyed the trailer. It looks like a movie that I would definitely watch and laugh along to. So I'm definitely going to check it out. I really appreciate you coming on, Justin. We'll have you back another time, and I'll update you after I watch Brick Madness and Spinal Tap.
Sounds good. We got a movie coming out in January called Better, so I can talk to you about that then. Yeah, it's a totally different project.
Then we'll bring it back on, and for everybody, I just dropped all the information for Justin, so follow him on Instagram and follow along with the new movie that's coming out.
Hell yeah.
All right. Thanks a lot, bud. Appreciate it.
Thanks, man.